Hi there, welcome back. I've taken a little bit of a hiatus and haven't really made a video about a week and a half. Which I try to do every week, and that has not really worked. So I'm back. Apollo's back. Apollo doesn't like to be on the camera apparently, so we're probably gonna send him down. But he's just too adorable not to look at. Oh, look! Look! Right here! Yeah, look at that. Yeah. So that's Apollo, and I'm back. And you might be thinking to yourself, William, something looks totally different about you. And yes, I did play volleyball today. So that's kind of a big step for me because I don't really do volleyball. I mean, I do soccer and I'll do ultimate frisbee, but volleyball is not really my thing. But I played it, so good eye, whoever you are that caught this, because that's not something that would have stood out. Oh, wait, you weren't talking about that. You were mentioning something that was different about me. So yes, I did. I don't know, I just got interested and was like, why not? So I got them to add some color in my hair. And it's all green and blacks mixed in, and I got color in my hair, so I have green in my hair. I think this week is professional video games, so esports and whatnot. I'm not entirely sure of the schedule that I told you guys several videos ago that would be my schedule. I'm not sure if my wording on that was terrible, but I don't remember what I told you I would do, so we're just gonna roll with it and say esports was the topic that I said would come next. So esports, basically what are esports? Well, they're video games that are competitive, and you have teams generally. You might not have teams, it might just be you versus somebody else, but it's competitions. So that's what I want to talk about this week, is the idea that sports and esports are different, and where might they be different and where might they be similar. So I guess the most important thing when looking at this is defining for yourself what you think a sport is. So for me, I mean, if you look at the actual definition, I think it actually lines up with saying things like football is a sport, whereas something like chess isn't a sport. But for me, I feel like my definition of sport is just anything that is challenging and anything that pushes us beyond our limits and pushes us to our limits and has rules and has a winner and a loser. Those are like the basic rules for a sport in my mind. You might have a different definition of what a sport is, and if so, let me know, and that's cool. I don't expect you to have my definition of the sport, so don't think I'm saying you have to say exactly what my definition is. So how does my definition line up for actual sports that exist today, like football, baseball, soccer, etc.? So if you look at them, they all have some sort of challenging element to them. So athletics, so you have to work out, and you have to be strong, and you have to be able to hit the ball far, or throw the ball far, or kick the ball far, Kyle. And so they challenge you in some way. They force you to push your limits and find those limits and then go beyond them. And there's also teams, so there's different teams going against each other, and every game has every game has two people fighting. I'm using video game terms already. Every game has two teams that are going at each other and trying to get more points than the other so that they can win in the end. And that's kind of that is exactly my basic definition of what a sport is. And that lines up with what sports are now. Some people consider chess a sport, and then there are people who are very anti-chess being a sport. And people who say chess is a sport say it's a sport because it challenges you mentally, because you have to be able to think up your move, and then their reaction, and then your counter move to their reaction, and then their counter move, and you have to be moves ahead of your opponent. So you have to know exactly what they're going to do before they do it. If you can't be several moves ahead of what move you're currently making, you're not going to be good at chess, because you have to be able to see the reactions that your move is going to make. And so it's a very big mental game, and it challenges you to grow mentally, and you have to strain, and you have to force yourself to reach those limits and find those limits. And somebody wins and loses in chess. And then if we go further from what the current accepted definition of a sport is we get into things like League of Legends and things like Dota and things like StarCraft 2, and you have people who are very much for that being a sport, and you have people who are very much against that being considered a sport. And right now they're considered esports, which is kind of a sport. It's just clarifying that is a sport that is played on the computer. And for me, my definition of sport fits up perfectly with esports, because even though you don't have to like lift weights and you don't have to be like the strongest one to win, you have to have strategy, and you have to be able to manipulate your characters in ways that normal people can't. And if you ever watch somebody play a sport in a actual tournament or like the world championship for League, if you watch those people when they're playing that game and you've played it yourself, you're blown away, because there's no way you could, like, you're watching, you're like, how could they even think of doing, how did they land that, how did they know the range? These people memorize numbers, and they memorize exactly how far their skill shots can go, and they know exactly how fast they can build units in StarCraft, and they know exactly how many like actions they can take per minute. Like, these things are calculated down. It's an art form, and it's wonderful. And just the amount of effort and training and mental prep and all that goes into it, I have no problem with that having sport in its name. Now, I think I can understand where people are coming from when they complain about it, because for them, sports has always been their thing. So sports has been something that the really physically fit people go to, and they have that because that's what they've been training for. And then you have these kids come in who play League of Legends on their computer, and they play it so much that they eventually get really good, and then they make money off it. And I could see how someone would say that makes no sense. These people are out like lifting weights and devoting their life to getting better at this game, and these kids play this game at home on their computer for 12 hours a day and then make money. I don't understand. But you have to think that the 12 hours that they're not playing to have fun. They're playing because they're training, and they're playing because they're memorizing those numbers, and they're memorizing their moves and their opponent's counter moves, and there's so much that goes into it. And I think a perfect song of the week for this could be Warriors by Imagine Dragons. You should all go look it up and look up the music video for that, because it is stellar. It was made for the League of Legends World Championship Series based in South Korea. And it's cool, and it actually talks about, I think one of the lines says something along the lines of, while everyone just played, you worked, and you slaved away over this to make it something that you were good at and become better. And for some people it's just a game, but for those people who make it their life, it is so much more than that. And to me, that's enough to count as a sport. So what do you think? Do you think that esports should be legitimately called a sport? Do you think stations like ESPN should show these championship games when they're aired? Do you think that esports having sport in them with the E is acceptable, or do you think that you should strip sports entirely from esports and not consider them sports at all? And what is your reasoning behind that? I think there are plenty of arguments and counter arguments for both sides, but I think it's important that you think about it yourself. That's really all I have to say about sports and esports. And I think there's a lot of crossover. I got done playing volleyball today, so I'm not completely anti-sports, and I do enjoy watching a good soccer match. But something about watching League of Legends championship games, it's more engaging for me. And that's strange, because I don't actually know them and whatnot. So I don't know. It's just something I relate to more on a personal level. So maybe I'm more invested in it than the normal person would be. I don't know. So what do you think? Let me know. Comments down below, or on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or whatever. However you want to get in touch with me. I love you all. Don't forget to smile. I can't wait to see you next week, because we all know that I'm going to try to make a video next week, and then it's going to be like a week and a half, and then it's just going to be a year later, and then it's going to be like 4 years down the road, and you're going to be like, oh my gosh, William, you haven't made a video, and I'm going to be living off in some other country because never know where I'm going to be, and I'm not even going to be a developer anymore, and you're going to be like, and then I'm going to go off, and you're going to be like, where, and then